The alarm came at 3 in the morning, station time. Red lights flashed through every corridor of Station Helios 9. The sound was sharp and loud, the kind that made hearts beat faster and hands shake. It was the alarm that nobody wanted to hear, the one that meant something very, very bad had happened. Director woke from a deep sleep. She was a Meridian, a tall creature with smooth blue-green skin and 3 eyes that could see in almost total darkness. Her people came from a water world far across the galaxy. They were known for being calm and careful, but when saw the message on her communication device, all that calmness disappeared. Containment Breach Sector 7, Predator Wing Code Black. She read it 3 times. Her 3 eyes blinked one after another, which was something Meridians did when they were very scared. Code Black meant only one thing. One of the most dangerous creatures in the facility had escaped. Pulled on her uniform and ran through the empty corridors. Station Helios 9 was a massive place. It floated in space, far from any planet, and it served as a home for the most dangerous animals in the known galaxy. Scientists from 100 different worlds came here to study creatures that could not be kept anywhere else. The station had the best containment systems, the strongest walls, and the most advanced security. Nothing was supposed to escape. But something had escaped, and already knew what it was. When she reached the control center, her security chief was already there. Was a warrior from a race of hunters. He stood 7 feet tall with thick gray skin and 2 hearts that beat in his massive chest. His face had many scars from battles fought long ago. He had killed more dangerous creatures than most people had ever seen. But even looked worried. "Show me," said. Pressed a button and the main screen lit up. It showed the inside of a containment cell. The walls were made of special metal that could stop almost anything. The energy barrier that usually glowed blue at the entrance was dark and broken. The cell was empty. "It happened sometime between midnight and 2 in the morning," said. His voice was deep like thunder. "The barriers failed. We do not know how. When the night guard came to check, the creature was already gone." Felt sick. There was not an ordinary predator. It was a Category 7 extinction-level threat. That was the highest danger rating any creature could have. It meant that this one animal, if released on a populated planet, could kill millions of people. It could destroy entire cities. It was death itself, given 6 legs and scales that bent light. "Where is it now?" she asked. "We do not know. It can hide from our sensors. Our thermal cameras cannot see it because it changes its body temperature. Our motion detectors cannot track it because it moves like a ghost. We are blind, Director." Closed her eyes for a moment. She tried to think. The station had over 2,000 people on it. Scientists, workers, families. If they reached the living areas, the death count would be terrible. "Lock down everything," she ordered. "Nobody moves. Nobody opens any door without my permission. Get every armed guard you have and start searching. We need to find this thing before it finds us." Nodded, but then he raised one thick finger. "There is something else, Director. Something strange." "What?" "The security logs. Someone accessed the Predator wing last night. Someone who should not have been there at that hour." He pressed another button. A new image appeared on the screen. It showed a man walking through a corridor. He was human, which was unusual. Humans were rare on this station. They came from a small blue planet called Earth, and most other species did not think much of them. Humans were soft. They had no claws, no thick skin, no special powers. They were considered one of the weaker races in the galaxy. This human was wearing simple work clothes. He had short black hair and a calm face. He walked slowly, like he had nowhere important to be. The timestamp on the video showed 11:47 p.m. "His name is Park," said. "He is the groundskeeper. He takes care of the plants in the... He has no reason to be near the Predator wing." Stared at the image. The human looked so ordinary, so harmless. "You think he did this? You think he let thee out?" "I think he was the last person near that cell before the breach. I think we need to find him and ask him some questions, if he is still alive." That last part hung in the air like a bad smell. Knew what was thinking. If this human had gotten close to he was probably already dead. The creature did not leave survivors. It did not show mercy. It was a perfect killing machine from a world where everything was a perfect killing machine. "Find him," said. "Find the human and find that creature. I want both of them in front of me within the hour." Gathered his team. They were the best hunters on the station. 20 warriors, all of them experienced in tracking and killing dangerous animals. They carried plasma rifles that could burn through steel. They had neural disruptors that could shut down a creature's brain. They had sonic grenades that could burst eardrums from 50 feet away. They thought they were ready. Stayed in the control center and watched their heat signatures move through the station. Red dots on a map, spreading out like blood drops on white cloth. She tried to stay calm. She tried to tell herself that everything would be fine, but deep inside she knew the truth. It was not like other predators. It did not just kill with teeth and claws. It killed with fear. It had a psychic ability that reached into the minds of other creatures and turned their fear into a weapon. Strong warriors had gone mad just from being near it. Trained hunters had turned their weapons on themselves rather than face it. In all the years since the creature had been captured, 17 handlers had tried to take care of it. All 17 were dead. Some had been eaten. Some had been driven insane. Some had simply disappeared, leaving behind nothing but bloodstains and screams. And now it was loose on a station full of innocent people. Pulled up the file on Park. She needed to understand why a simple groundskeeper would go near the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. The file was short. 32 years old, born on Earth, former soldier in the United Colonial Forces, discharged 3 years ago, started working at Helios 9 6 months ago. She read the military section again. There was not much detail, just a list of places where he had served. Most of them were small colonies with names she did not recognize, but one name jumped out at her. One name that made her 3 eyes go wide. Cora Prime. She knew that planet. Everyone knew that planet. It was a death world, one of the most dangerous places in the known galaxy. The air was poison, the water was acid, the plants had teeth, and the animals were nightmares given flesh. They came from Cora Prime. Felt a cold feeling spread through her body. What was a human doing on a death world? How had he survived? And why had he come here to the station that held a creature from his worst memories? She did not have answers, but she was starting to think that this situation was more complicated than a simple containment breach. Somewhere in the depths of Station Helios 9, there was moving. Somewhere in those same depths, a human groundskeeper was walking calmly through corridors that should have been filled with terror. And somewhere in between, the hunting party was about to discover that they were not the only predators in this story. Had been hunting dangerous creatures for 40 years. He had tracked sand serpents through the burning deserts of. He had killed cave beasts in the dark tunnels of the ice moon. He had faced things that would make most beings cry and beg for mercy. He had never begged. He had never cried. He was and did not know fear. But as he led his team through the dark corridors of the Predator wing, felt something he had not felt in a very long time. It was a cold feeling in his stomach, a tightness in his chest. His 2 hearts were beating faster than they should. He did not call it fear. He told himself it was caution, respect for a dangerous enemy, that was all. The corridor was silent. Emergency lights cast everything in a dim red color. The walls were made of thick metal that could stop almost anything, but there were scratch marks on some of those walls, deep scratches like someone had dragged knives across the surface. The marks were fresh. Spread out, ordered his team through their communication devices. Check every room, every storage space, every air vent. This thing is smart. It knows how to hide. His hunters moved like shadows themselves. They were well trained. They knew how to be quiet, how to watch, how to kill, but could see the tension in their bodies. He could see how tightly they held their weapons. They were scared too, even if they would never admit it. That was different from other predators, had read the files many times. The creature came from Cora Prime, a planet where evolution had created the most efficient killers in the galaxy. Everything on that world wanted to eat everything else. Only the strongest, fastest, and survived. That was the strongest. It was 6 meters long from nose to tail. It had 6 powerful legs that could carry it at speeds faster than most vehicles. Its scales were special. They could change color and texture to match any background. The creature could become almost invisible when it wanted to hide. But the worst thing was not its body, it was its mind. There was a psychic predator. It could sense the emotions of other creatures. It could feel their fear, their anger, their confusion, and it could use those emotions against them. When it hunted, it would reach into the minds of its prey and make their fear grow bigger and bigger until they could not move, could not think, could not do anything except wait to die. 17 handlers had tried to take care of it since it was captured 5 years ago. All 17 were dead. The first handler had been a scientist. She had lasted 2 weeks before she was found dead in the creature's cell, her body torn to pieces. The second handler had been a trained animal expert from the water world. He had lasted 1 month before he went completely mad. He spent his last days screaming about eyes in the dark before he threw himself out of an airlock. The third handler, the fourth, the fifth, they all had the same ending, death or madness, usually both. That was why, when found the first sign of the human groundskeeper, he was sure they would find a body. "Captain," one of his hunters called through the communicator, "I found something." Moved quickly to the location. It was a maintenance corridor, a narrow passage that workers used to access the station's systems. There, caught on a sharp piece of metal, was a piece of cloth. It was from a work uniform, a human work uniform. "Blood?" asked. "No blood, Captain, just the cloth." Examined the torn fabric. It was a clean tear, not the kind made by teeth or claws. It looked like someone had simply brushed past the sharp metal while walking calmly, without panic. That was strange, very strange. At the same time, back in the control center, Director was digging deeper into Park's file. She had called in Polo, her young assistant, to help her understand what she was reading. "His military record is mostly classified," Polo said. The young Meridian's eyes moved quickly across the screen. "But I found some reports from his commanding officers. They are interesting." "Show me." Polo pulled up the documents. They were official military reports, written in the dry language that soldiers used, but between the lines could see something remarkable. Park had served 3 tours on Cora Prime. 3 tours. Most soldiers who went to that death world did not survive 1 tour. The average of a human soldier on Cora Prime was 67 days. Park had survived for over 2 years. "How is that possible?" whispered. "No human should be able to survive that long on a death world." Polo kept reading. According to this report, his unit was ambushed during their 2nd month. 30 soldiers went into the jungle. Only Park came out. He walked for 2 weeks through some of the most dangerous territory on the planet. He walked past creatures that should have killed him. He walked through areas that our sensors marked as certain death zones. And he survived. He survived. The report says he was found at the edge of the military base, calm and quiet. He was not injured. He was not even very tired. He just walked in, reported what had happened, and asked for water. Felt her scales tighten with worry. What about the psychological evaluation? Polo found the document. His 3 eyes went wide as he read it. The doctor said he showed signs of severe trauma. They expected him to have nightmares, panic attacks, the usual problems that soldiers get after bad experiences. But he did not have any of those things. None at all. None. He slept peacefully. He ate normally. He talked calmly about watching his friends die. The doctors wrote that it was like he had made peace with death, like he had accepted it so completely that it could not hurt him anymore. Thought about this for a long moment. She had seen humans before. They were strange creatures. They came from a planet that was actually quite dangerous compared to most civilized worlds. Their ancestors had fought predators, survived ice ages, crossed oceans in small wooden boats. They had a strange ability to keep going when other species would give up. But even by human standards, Park was unusual. "There is one more thing," Polo said quietly. "The reason for his discharge." "What was it?" "He asked to leave. He said he was tired. He said he wanted to grow things instead of destroy things. His commanders tried to keep him because he was such a good soldier, but he refused. He said he had seen enough death and wanted to spend the rest of his life surrounded by life." Looked at the image of the human on her screen, his calm face, his quiet eyes. He did not look like a soldier. He did not look like someone who had walked through hell and come out the other side. He looked like a gardener, just a simple man who wanted to take care of plants, but was starting to understand that there was nothing simple about Park. In the Predator wing and his team had found more signs, more scratch marks, more pieces of torn cloth, but still no body, still no blood, and most importantly, still no. The creature was leading them somewhere, could feel it in his bones. It was not running away, it was not hiding in fear, it was moving with purpose, going somewhere specific. "Captain," one of his hunters reported, "the trail is leading toward the—" Stopped. There was the largest section of the station. It was a massive artificial ecosystem that contained plants and small animals from dozens of different worlds. It had forests, rivers, and open fields. It had hiding places everywhere. It was also where the human groundskeeper worked. "Everyone move to the," ordered. "Weapons ready, shoot to kill." His hunters moved faster now. They could feel that they were getting close to something. The air felt different, heavier. There was a smell that did not recognize. It was wild and ancient, like the breath of a creature from the beginning of time. They reached the entrance to the massive doors were open. Somehow, someone had unlocked them from the inside. Raised his weapon and stepped into the artificial jungle. The hunt was about to reach its end. But what they would find on the other side was something that none of them could have expected. That was beautiful in a way that made uncomfortable. He was a hunter, a warrior. He understood blood and battle. He did not understand beauty. But even he had to admit that this place was something special. Tall trees with purple leaves stretched toward the artificial sky. Soft grass covered the ground in shades of blue and green. A small river flowed through the center, its water clear and musical. Flowers bloomed everywhere, filling the air with sweet smells. It was like stepping into a dream of what nature could be if it had no violence, no danger, no death. This was where Park spent his days. This was his kingdom. And his team spread out through They moved carefully, keeping their weapons ready. They could be anywhere. It could be watching them right now, invisible among the colorful plants, waiting for the perfect moment to attack. "Stay sharp," whispered into his communicator. "Check your corners, watch for any movement." But there was no movement. There was peaceful. Small creatures moved through the bushes, making soft sounds. Birds from distant planets sang in the trees. It did not feel like a place where death was hiding. That worried more than anything. There was a creature of fear. When it was nearby, other animals went silent. Plants seemed to wilt. The air itself felt wrong, like the universe knew something terrible was close. But here in everything was calm. Everything was normal. Unless there was not acting like a predator anymore. Pushed deeper into the artificial forest. His sensors still showed nothing. His thermal imaging still failed. But his instincts, trained over 40 years of hunting, told him he was getting close. Then he heard something that made him stop. It was a sound he did not recognize at first. A low, rumbling noise, almost like thunder but softer. It came from ahead, through a thick grove of twisted trees with bark like silver metal. Raised his fist, signaling his team to stop. He moved forward alone, slowly, carefully. His weapon was aimed and ready. His two hearts pounded in his chest. He pushed through the silver trees and found himself in a small clearing. There was a large boulder covered with soft green moss. Beside it, a tiny stream bubbled over smooth stones. Purple light filtered through the leaves above, creating a pattern of shadows and brightness. And in the center of this peaceful place, saw something impossible. Park was sitting on the boulder. He had his back against a twisted tree, and he was holding some kind of small device in his hand, reading something. In his other hand was a simple container, and he was drinking from it slowly, like someone enjoying a morning coffee. But that was not the impossible part. The impossible part was the creature curled against his chest. The was there, 6 meters of depth, 6 legs tucked under its massive body. Scales that should have been shifting with predatory hunger lay flat and calm, reflecting the purple light in beautiful patterns. Its head, with jaws that could crush bone like dry leaves, rested on the human's lap. And it was purring. The sound it heard was not thunder. It was the purring like a giant, terrifying cat. Park looked up. His expression shifted from peaceful to slightly annoyed, like someone who had been interrupted during a quiet moment. "Could you lower that weapon?" he said in his calm voice. "You are making her anxious." Could not move. His training, his experience, his 40 years of hunting dangerous creatures, all of it meant nothing in this moment. His brain could not understand what his eyes were seeing. He opened its eyes. Those eyes had driven warriors mad. Those eyes had made trained hunters turn their weapons on themselves. They were ancient and deep, filled with an intelligence that no animal should have. The creature looked at. It looked at his weapon, and then slowly it moved its head closer to Park's chest, like a child hiding behind a parent. It was afraid. The most dangerous predator in the known galaxy was afraid of him. Behind, his hunting team had caught up. They stood at the edge of the clearing, their weapons raised, their bodies frozen with shock. One of them made a small sound of terror. Another started to shake so badly that he dropped his rifle. "By the void, mothers," someone whispered. "What is this? What is happening?" Park sighed. He put down his reading device and gently stroked his head. The creature made a soft chirping sound, like a bird asking for comfort. "Her name is," Park said, "and she is not going to hurt anyone, not unless you do something stupid with those weapons." Finally found his voice. It came out rough and broken. How is this possible?" "It is a long story." "Then you will tell it to the director. You are coming with us." Park looked at the curled against him. He looked at the terrified hunters with their shaking weapons. He seemed to be thinking about something. "Fine," he said finally, "but she comes with me, and nobody points a weapon at her. If they do, I cannot promise she will stay calm." Wanted to argue. He wanted to put the human in chains and drag the creature back to its cell. But he looked at those ancient eyes that were watching him with careful attention, and he knew that any aggressive move would end very badly. "Agreed," he said through his teeth, "but we are watching you, both of you." Park stood up slowly. The rose with him, unfolding its 6 legs like a flower opening. Standing up, it was even more terrifying. Its head was higher than us, and its body was long enough to block the entire path. But it moved softly, carefully, like it was trying not to scare anyone. It walked beside Park like a loyal pet. Its tail swung gently, and one time it made those chirping sounds again. Park responded with soft words in a language that did not understand. Human language. Korean, maybe. They walked through toward the exit. The hunting team followed at a safe distance, their weapons lowered but ready. Nobody spoke. Nobody could think of words for what they had just seen. When they reached the doors, activated his communicator. "Director, we found the human. He is alive and unharmed. And the looked at the massive creature walking calmly beside the small human. He looked at how it tilted its head when Park spoke, like it was listening carefully. He looked at how its scales had changed to a soft blue color, peaceful and quiet. "The is with him," said slowly. "It is. I do not know how to explain it. You need to see this yourself." There was a long silence on the communicator. "Bring them both to my office," Director said finally. "And do not do anything to make that creature upset. I think we are dealing with something we do not understand." Ended the call and looked at Park. The human was scratching behind the sensory frills, and the creature was leaning into his touch like a happy dog. 40 years of hunting, hundreds of dangerous creatures, and had never seen anything like this. "What are you?" he asked quietly. Park looked up at him. There was something old and sad in his eyes, something that spoke of pain and loss and a long journey through darkness. "I am just a gardener," he said. "I take care of living things. That is all I want to do now." He walked past toward the director's office, and the most dangerous creature in the galaxy followed him like a loyal shadow, purring softly in the quiet corridor. Director had seen many strange things in her long career. She had worked at research stations across the galaxy. She had dealt with alien creatures that could melt metal with their blood. She had handled emergencies that would make most beings lose their minds. But nothing had prepared her for the sight of a human walking into her office with a at his side. Park sat down in the chair across from her desk. The could not fit in the office, so it curled up just outside the door, its massive head resting on the floor, its ancient eyes watching everything with careful attention. Every few moments, it would make that soft chirping sound, and Park would answer with quiet words in Korean. Three eyes moved between the human and the creature. Her mind was trying to make sense of what she was seeing, but it kept failing. "Start from the beginning," she said. Her voice was surprisingly steady. "How did you get that creature out of its cell?" Park was quiet for a moment. He looked tired, but not the kind of tired that came from lack of sleep. It was the tiredness of someone who had been carrying a heavy weight for a very long time. "I did not let her out," he said. "She let herself out. She has been able to escape her cell for months. She just never had a reason to leave before." "What changed?" "I started visiting her at night, reading to her, talking to her. She got attached to me, I think. When she realized I was not coming yesterday, she came looking for me." Blinked all three of her eyes. "You have been visiting a Category 7 predator, without permission, without protection." She did not need to see protection. Protection would have made things worse. Stepped forward. He had been standing in the corner of the office, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. 17 handlers have died trying to control that creature, experienced scientists, trained experts. They had weapons, barriers, backup teams, and you just walked in there alone. Park nodded, "Yes." "Why did it not kill you?" Park looked at the outside the door. The creature's eyes met his and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or trust. "Because I was not afraid of her," he said, "and she knew it." The room went silent, leaned forward, her scales shifting with confusion. "That is impossible," she said. "The is a psychic predator. It creates fear in other creatures. It amplifies their terror until they cannot function. No species can resist that effect. It is built into the brain, the basic survival instinct." "You are right," Park said. "Most species cannot resist. The fear response is automatic. When something dangerous appears, the brain screams danger and the body reacts. It is how life survives." "So how did you survive?" Park was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, heavier. "I served on Cora Prime for 2 years. That is this home world. Everything there wants to kill you. The air, the water, the plants, the animals. Every moment of every day you are surrounded by death." He paused. His eyes grew distant, seeing memories that nobody else in the room could see. In my first month, my unit was attacked by creatures that came out of the ground. 30 soldiers entered the jungle that morning. By sunset, I was the only one left. I spent 2 weeks walking back to base through the most dangerous territory on the planet. I should have died 100 times, 1,000 times. But you survived, said. I survived because I learned something that most people never learn. Fear is a choice. Not the first reaction is automatic. But what you do after that, how you respond to the fear, that is something you can control. He looked at his hands. They were the hands of a gardener now, calloused from working with soil and plants. But they had once held weapons. They had once taken lives. After I watched all my friends die, after I walked past creatures that should have eaten me, after I survived things that should have killed me, fear became just another feeling, like being cold or being hungry. I could feel it, acknowledge it, and then let it pass through me without taking control. Made a skeptical sound. No one can do that. Fear is the strongest survival instinct. It keeps creatures alive. And it also gets them killed, Park said. When you are so scared that you cannot move, cannot think, cannot fight, fear stops being useful. It becomes a prison. I had to break out of that prison or die. Outside the door, the shifted. It raised its head and made a low, rumbling sound. Park looked at it and nodded slightly, like he understood what it was saying. When I first visited her cell, he continued, she tried to do what she always does. She reached into my mind and tried to amplify my fear, but there was nothing to amplify. I felt her presence, felt that cold psychic touch, and I just sat down and started reading a book. What happened then? Asked. She was confused. In her entire life, no creature had ever reacted that way. Every animal, every person, every handler had been paralyzed by terror. But I was just sitting there, turning pages, completely calm. She did not know what to do with me. Park almost smiled. It was a small, sad smile. So she got curious. She came closer to me. She sniffed me. She touched me with one of her legs. And when she realized I was not going to run, not going to attack, not going to show any of the reactions she was used to, she did something amazing. What? She lay down next to me and listened while I read. The room was completely silent, and everyone else who was listening could not believe what they were hearing. Over the next few months, I visited her every night. I read to her. I talked to her about my life, my memories, my hopes. She could not understand my words, but she understood my emotions. She could feel that I was peaceful, that I meant no harm, that I genuinely enjoyed spending time with her. Park looked at the creature outside the door with something like affection. She is not a monster. She is a predator, yes, a dangerous one, but she is also intelligent. She has feelings, thoughts, preferences. On her home world live in family groups. They protect each other. They care for their young. They are social creatures who need connection. For 5 years, he said quietly, she was alone in a cell with nothing but handlers who feared and hated her. Can you imagine how lonely that must have been? Felt something strange in her chest. Was it sympathy for a Category 7 predator? You said she came looking for you, said slowly. Because you did not visit her yesterday. Why did you not visit? Park's expression changed. He looked slightly embarrassed. I was sick, food poisoning from the cafeteria. I spent all night in my quarters. I could not even walk to the predator wing. When she realized I was not coming, she decided to find me herself. She broke out of maximum security containment because she missed you. I think so, yes. Laughed. It was a harsh, disbelieving sound. This is impossible. This is some kind of trick. Creatures like that do not form attachments. They do not miss people. They kill. Park looked at the old warrior. There was no anger in his eyes, just patience. You are wrong, he said. All creatures form attachments. All creatures want connection. Even the most dangerous predator in the galaxy wants to be loved. She was just waiting for someone who could love her without fear. Outside the door, they made that chirping sound again. It was almost like agreement. Director looked at the creature. She looked at the human. She looked at everything she had believed about predators and prey, about monsters and men. And she realized that she had been wrong about many things. "What do we do now?" she asked quietly. Park thought about it. "Let me keep working with her. Let me show you that she can be trusted. She is not going to hurt anyone as long as she has a reason not to. And right now, that reason is me." It was a crazy request. It went against every protocol, every safety regulation, every rule that had kept Helios 9 running for years. But looked at those ancient eyes that were watching her with careful attention, and she made a decision that would change everything. "We will try it your way," she said. "But if anything goes wrong, if anyone gets hurt, this experiment ends immediately. Do you understand?" Park nodded. "I understand and thank you." He stood up and walked to the door. The rose to meet him, its massive body moving with surprising grace. When Park placed his hand on its head, the creature made a sound of pure contentment. Watched them walk down the corridor together, the small human and the massive predator, and she wondered if she was watching the beginning of something new. Something that the galaxy had never seen before. 6 months passed since the night they escaped its cell. Station Helios 9 had changed in ways that nobody could have predicted. Word of what happened spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Scientists, researchers, and curious observers came from distant worlds to see the impossible with their own eyes. They came to see a human walking through with the most dangerous creature in the galaxy, following behind him like a loyal dog. Park had a new title now. He was no longer called the Groundskeeper. The Galactic Council had created a special position just for him, Lead Behavioral Specialist. It was a fancy title that meant he was officially in charge of understanding dangerous animals and finding new ways to work with them. He still liked being called, though. Titles made him uncomfortable. The who everyone now called had become the first Category 7 predator successfully integrated into a non-lethal study program. She had her own large habitat in a special section of the. It was designed to look like her home world, with dark caves and purple plants and warm pools of water where she liked to rest. But rarely stayed in her habitat. She preferred to follow around the station, watching him work, sleeping near his feet, making those soft chirping sounds whenever he talked to her. The other creatures on the station learned to accept her presence. At first, they had been terrified. Small animals would run and hide when they felt her psychic presence. But over time, as remained calm and peaceful, they began to understand that she was not hunting. She was just living her life, surrounded by beings who no longer feared her. Director watched this transformation with amazement. She had spent her entire career believing that predators and prey could not coexist, that dangerous creatures had to be locked away, controlled, contained. Park had shown her a different way. "It is remarkable," she said to Polo one morning, watching walk through the with at his side. He did not change he just gave her something she never had before. "What was that?" Polo asked. "A chance to be something other than a monster." Other humans began arriving at Station Helios 9. They came from Earth and its colonies, from places where life was hard and dangerous. They were veterans-like, people who had served on death worlds and survived things that should have killed them. They carried that same quiet stillness, that strange peace that came from having already faced the worst the universe could offer. Hired several of them to work in the Predator wing. She wanted to see if ability was unique or if other humans could do the same thing. The results were surprising. A woman named had served on a volcanic world where the ground could open up and swallow you without warning. She learned to approach the station's acid-spitting serpents with the same calm that showed. Within weeks, the serpents were eating from her hand. A man named had survived a shipwreck on an ocean world full of massive predators. He began working with the station's collection of deep-sea monsters, Creatures that had killed 3 previous handlers now swam beside him like friendly dolphins. A young woman named had grown up on a frontier colony where attacks from native wildlife were common. She had lost her parents to predators when she was just a child, but instead of having dangerous creatures, she had learned to understand them. She could read their body language, predict their moods, know when they were scared or hungry or curious. Trained all of them. He taught them what he had learned on Cora Prime, not how to fight fear but how to accept it, how to let it flow through you without taking control, how to be present in the moment, aware of danger but not paralyzed by it. Fear is not your enemy, he would tell them. It is just information. It tells you that something dangerous is nearby. The problem is when fear becomes the only voice in your head, when it drowns out everything else and leaves you helpless. Understood this deeply. She had been trapped in a lava tube for 3 days after an eruption, waiting to be rescued while the heat slowly rose around her. She had felt fear so strong that it almost broke her mind. But she had survived by finding a place of calm inside herself, a quiet center where fear could not reach. When everything is trying to kill you, she told the other trainees, you learn to find peace in strange places, in the sound of your own heartbeat, in the rhythm of your breathing, in the simple fact that you are still alive right now in this moment. Seemed to enjoy having more humans around. She would visit their habitats, watching them work with other predators. Sometimes she would make sounds that seemed almost like approval when a human successfully calmed a dangerous creature. Watched all of this with complicated feelings. The old warrior had spent his life believing that strength meant dominance, that the only way to deal with dangerous creatures was to be more dangerous yourself. Park had shown him that strength could also mean peace, that power could come from understanding instead of violence. I do not understand your people, admitted to one evening. They were sitting in the watching play in a shallow stream. The massive predator was splashing water with her tail like a happy child. What do you mean? Asked. You are not the strongest species in the galaxy. You are not the fastest or the most advanced. Your bodies are soft. Your senses are weak. You should be prey for creatures like but instead you walk beside them like equals. Thought about this. He watched catch a small fish in the stream and eat it with obvious pleasure. Maybe that is exactly why we can do this, he said. We know we are not the strongest. We have never had the luxury of thinking we could win every fight, so we learned other ways to survive. We learned to understand, to adapt, to find connections with creatures that should be our enemies. Grunted, the elder races have always wondered why humans spread so fast across the galaxy, why you survive in places that kill other species. We thought it was because you were aggressive, reckless, willing to fight anything. And now, the old warrior watched roll onto her back so could scratch her belly. The most dangerous predator in the galaxy, making sounds of pure happiness while a soft human rubbed her scales. Now I think it is something else, something we do not have a word for in my language. You learn to make peace with monsters, starting with the ones inside yourselves. Smiled. It was a real smile this time, not the sad one he usually wore. That is a good way to put it, he said. Time passed. The station continued to change. More humans came, more dangerous creatures were rehabilitated, more impossible things became possible. The galaxy watched with wonder as a small station on the edge of known space proved that fear was not the only way to survive. 1 year after the Knight escaped her cell, Director organized a ceremony to honor Park and his team. Representatives from dozens of worlds came to watch. They stood in the great hall of the station, surrounded by plants from 100 different planets, and they listened as spoke about what the humans had achieved. For centuries, she said, we believed that dangerous creatures had to be controlled through force. We built stronger cages, developed more powerful weapons, created more effective containment systems. But we never asked the most important question. She paused and looked at Park, who was standing at the front of the crowd with his head resting on his shoulder. We never asked if there was another way, if monsters could become friends, if fear could become understanding. One human showed us that everything we believed was wrong, and in doing so, he changed the galaxy forever. After the ceremony stood alone in the width, the station was quiet now. The visitors had gone home. Life would return to normal tomorrow with all its work and challenges and small daily tasks. Made a soft sound and stroked her head. "I know," he said quietly. "I am tired too, but this is good work. This is why we survived everything, so we could be here now showing the universe that there is another way." He thought about his friends who had died on Cora Prime. He thought about the fear and pain and loss that had almost destroyed him. He thought about the long journey that had brought him to this place, this moment, this strange family he had built with a creature that should have been his enemy. "We made peace with monsters," he said to you and me, "and maybe that is the most human thing we could have done." They purred in agreement, and together they walked through the artificial forest, two survivors from different worlds who had found something precious in each other. Not power, not dominance, not control. Just understanding, just peace, just love. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, humanity continued its strange journey among the stars, not as conquerors or prey, but as something the universe had never quite seen before. The species that befriended the dark,